Hey everyone, welcome back to MarCommEd the week ahead for Series 2. I'm thrilled to be back in the new academic year. I know it's been a busy one for most people, but Ryan and myself are glad to be back, and we've got a fantastic range of guests. Starting with John Brennan today, who I know a lot of people watching will know of John. But first of all, Ryan, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Zach. Summer is officially gone. I mean, I'm in the north of England and I'm wearing a fleece. And as we were chatting just before we came on, yeah, my beard is blending into my fleece, so I'm looking like Hagrid. So this is not. It's cold. It is cold, and I don't feel like I've had enough sun. So yeah.
Yeah,
Other than
feeling that.
that, I'm doing all right. Doing all right. September's come in like a kind of a whirlwind, and we're up and running. And there's been loads of stuff, as you know, with what we're doing with MarCommEd, and I know we're going to chat about that later on. But it's good to be back doing the kind of to the routine and doing these weekends. And I'm glad to be chatting to John today.
Brilliant. How are you, John? Do you want to just give our listeners a little bit of a flavour of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm great, thank you, by the way, Zach, and nice to see you both again. Yeah, despite my slightly more summery apparel, it's also freezing here in Lancashire as well. So I haven't allowed the heating to go on yet. So there's always that. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I've been working in what you might call the education comm space, I guess, for 25 years now, and obviously seen quite a lot of change, systemic change, technical change over those years, and I've been helping first off schools and then academy trusts and academies and everything in between to do comms better and to be better organisations.
Oh, brilliant. Well, I'm looking forward to the conversation today, and I know we'll probably have a follow-up one with a longer form at some point soon. Because, yeah, I know, as I say, I know a lot of people know of you, they've worked with you, so I'm sure a lot of people will get a lot of value from this. But just obviously, it's the start of the new academic year. It's a new week. What does your week ahead look like, John?
Well, interestingly, it's split into two very discrete chunks this week. Because it's open evening season, as anyone who's close to schools marketing, especially secondary schools marketing, will be painfully aware. I'm helping out a lovely school who don't have a lot of resource, and I've been helping them out through since early last summer a rebrand. They really wanted to think about how they were communicating to their local community, and their last rebrand had happened a lot of years ago. So it's been lovely almost getting back to that cold face, because that's what I've been doing. I've been there. I've been liaising with design agencies and all that kind of lovely stuff that really took me back to the beginning of my career, really. Hopefully, well, I do know that everything has been sorted. Everything will be arriving on time tomorrow for their open evening on Wednesday. But interestingly, that's kind of the tactical side of that. The other side that we're doing as well with them is saying, okay, how can you become more sustainable in your systems and your team? They don't want me around, as it were. Yeah, they're having a lovely time. But the point is that they need to make sure that going forward in 1, 3, 5 years, this is something that they can resource internally. And we've chatted before, haven't we, about the systems and the platforms and the information flow around school leadership teams, about how to make that work for them, more and more. So that's one side. And then on the other side, I'm helping out a set of trustees at a larger multi-academy trust thinking about their growth strategy. So right over there on the strategy ladder, really, and thinking, okay, how are we going to communicate effectively so that then people like the regional director's office, other trusts, other schools who might be interested in joining them, are getting the right messages through to make sure that they can understand what this trust is actually all about. So that's what I'm doing this week, both sides of that.
How it's interesting you say about working with trustees at trust level. Are you seeing more and more of that? Do you think trustees are maybe the caliber, the type of trustees that they feel that they need to be more involved in the kind of communication strategy within trusts and specifically schools?
Very much so. Certainly, one of the very specific strands that we do talk about is actually trustee communications,
right,
and trustee visibility. So as a almost like a content source, really we want trustees and governors to have some visibility and to be able to communicate positively about their organization. Because at the end of the day, they are the bosses, and not a lot of people understand that either.
No.
Not a lot of people understand about governance. And so the more that we can get them out there, across those channels is really important. But then also getting trustees to understand that communications is important. And the formation of things like growth strategies is really important, so that they all mesh up with things like vision and values, and we don't get any disconnect. So that's where you need to do that work.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, and I think it's such a big driving force for where trust growth is going. But I suppose just if you could elaborate a bit more on that, John, what challenges are you seeing trust face, or what are you facing in supporting trust to achieve those objectives around that?
Well, it's interesting that we're talking about this in the week of the Labour Party conference, because the challenge, and our challenge actually since the white paper really bit the dust back in 2022, has been probably what's going to happen. What actually can we say, that any government in post wants to happen in relation to the school landscape. So actually, there's been quite a lot of things like academisation happening post white paper, but my personal feeling is there's not been a lot of what I call ideological guidance out there. For my money, regional director's office have been running it through an algorithm to a certain extent and going, okay, yeah, that works, that doesn't work, based on risk. What I think the sector needs to know, whether you're a maintained school or an academy, or an academy trust, is what's the direction of travel? What's the landscape going to be like? How likely is our trust to grow? For instance, if it's only got 2 schools, etc. Because then trusts and schools then can understand what resource they might want to allocate into growing or not growing. And so I think we're all hoping for a bit more clarity. I think we might see a little bit this week from the ideological point of view at conference. I think come the budget, we might know a little bit more in the detail in terms of what's happening, around things like trust development and capacity funding. Small detail last week as well is that the DFE has kind of like swallowed up the ESFA, the funding agency. In theory, that won't make a lot of difference, but again, is that going to go regional? There might be a lot more focus on the regions now, and those regional directors might get more and more more and more power. So that's, as ever, the challenge is that versus resource allocation.
And it's interesting you talk about that, because I couldn't agree more. I think that over the last couple of years, organizations like CST, ASCL, NHT, the unions, they've kind of, the Institute, even for school business leadership, filled that space in between government and operations, and they've been the ones that have been mediating and interpreting this, and then giving guidance to their members on actually what you should be doing, because we've asked the questions and we've got the feedback on your behalf. But I think the changes at the moment are just so rapid. I don't know if the sector's got the time for those people to go through all of that iteration, and actually they need it kind of direct from the source. So they've got, I mean, it's the ambiguity of it all. But then, the one step, after that is, and how do we communicate that down to our staff, our parents, our stakeholders, community, sponsors, all of that.
Very much so. And I think there is a challenge, that we do see. I know that we all see it, don't we? Is that schools have to communicate, and so irrespective of the ecosystem that they're living in at that particular point in time, the basics of good communications, and good marketing, are fairly standard. Those things to get right. And so certainly things like I know we've talked about it before, Zach, and you're really conscious and keen, especially in where you work, about those team structures, and about how actually who sends the tweet, and what does it say, and so I always like to say that we move up and down this sliding scale from strategic to tactical really quickly. And so a lot of people who are watching this are going to be the people who send the tweet. And so they need to be empowered. They need to be well managed, or indeed, if they're managerial themselves, they need to be able to manage the people around them, so that then that system works, so that then everyone is communicating well. Whether, like we were talking before, whether that's in the digital lead space, in a comms lead space, whether you're an assistant head teacher, whether you're a TA, whatever, that needs to be, really, really, well thought about, I think.
100%, yeah.
Do you think as we become, from a societal standpoint, the speed of communication is just, it's lightning now. I heard some interesting quote things that said, in the space of what is kind of 15 years, if you needed to find out the second largest capital city of somewhere in South America, it was an 8-hour journey. They timed it because you have to go out of your house, you'd have to catch a bus, you'd have to go to the library, you have to look it up, you have to come back. Whereas now it's, it is 8 seconds from your voice to text kind of Siri, thing. Do you think the expectation? Well, and this is probably slightly a rhetorical question, but you get the point. Is that the expectation is so fast now that it comes from DFE right the way through to parents, and then essentially back, they want the ability to communicate their feelings back again. That this is really where trusts and schools are going to have to focus, is yes on quality, but also on speed, basically.
And it's been absolutely, and it's been gaining momentum. And the speed, it's like broadband, isn't it? It's just these things get quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker. I remember one of the first iterations of this that I really picked up on was in the crisis PR space, where something happened in a school, and in the olden days, as it were, a school would have time to sort that out. Not only sort out what the communications externally were going to be about that, but actually what was happening in the first instance in dealing with it in school. And then what happens, what happened then, this is, 10 years ago, it was already on Facebook before our teacher had a chance to interview our child about it in an internal procedure point of view. So, so how that then works, is really, really interesting, all the way through to, and I think you use a really great word there, expectation. I think that this is all tied into a bit of a breaking of the social contract since COVID. I think there's a lot to do with, attendance and things like this. Is how do schools adapt and, make communications better for parents for any given value of better, so that then they're not getting wound up about stuff. Now that's not to say that we bow down and etc. That's not what we're saying, but the point is that you can get certainly parental communication sorted to a good degree, so that then you're not making some basic errors that are just adding to that that friction.
I think it's a mammoth of a challenge, isn't it? And I'm fortunate at where I'm at in the Loris Trust. I've got a senior role where I have that influence and that push to create change and help our schools to implement good processes and strategies. I think that needs to be quite level across the sector. And, it'd be great to see more trust recognise the value and importance of having someone in that senior role. And we've had conversations about this previously, John, and obviously a lot of the work you do kind of encourages that, because you're seeing this constant wheel of change. The pace of it is astronomical, and it's really difficult to keep up with. Should you be using a new platform, that, as you say, in a crisis, before you know it, it's on the front pages of a newspaper via social media, and it puts everyone on the back foot with fear. But actually, we need to tackle that head on with the right strategies and processes ready to deal with those situations, but also using it as a tool for marketing and comms in a really positive way. And you only get that when you've got someone with that strategic responsibility driving it in a way that that they're empowered to do so. I think the other factor, and I've mentioned this on previous episodes, is the demands and expectations, using that word again, from a generational shift. As you look at now, particularly with primary schools, you look at the intake of preschool and reception children for this current year, and you look at their parent ages. I've just turned 33, probably around my age, some are younger, but actually, the devices and the platforms they're using for their lifestyles, they're expecting all the public service sectors to do the same.
Yeah.
So, education's got to move with that wave, and I think it's something that we're none of us are prepared for, but we've got to try and tackle that ground and make some strides there on in. I'm just obviously conscious of time, John, because I know you're a busy man. But are there any other trends in the education sector which you think that schools and trusts are finding challenging, or are there any particular strategies that you can kind of advise on what they should be doing to tackle those?
I think that looking at especially trust, I work a lot with multi-academy trusts, and you mentioned it before. It's trying to make the comms system across a complex organisation work in the same way that they are dealing with complex systems like finance and complex systems like HR, and understanding that I would say this because I'm a comms guy, but comms is the golden thread that runs through everything. HR is comms, policy is comms, process is comms, and it can blow people's heads, and that's fine. But it's just making sure that where we are isolating comms as a system, which it is, and it has to go like that, is that we are thinking about what those systems are. And there are some systems that are growing out there, and we were chatting before about some things that are on Microsoft and things like that. I think that's if we're properly horizon scanning, that's where we need to be getting to, as well. But then back up at the coal face, some of the basics. Just let's get the basics right. Let's get some great images. Let's get some video. Let's work hard at things like color. So let's not get totally bogged down in the digital. Let's think about some of the content and some of those nice basic things that we need to get right.
Definitely.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Well, it's been a very short and sweet conversation with you there today, John. But I think we've chewed the fat on a lot of good topics there, which I'm sure we all relate to. And we're definitely going to have a follow-up for a longer form conversation soon on some of those topics we've covered, because I think there's a lot of value there that the community will gain from your insights and knowledge, if that's something you're up for.
Oh, absolutely.
Where can people find you?
I'm on LinkedIn. Is a good place. John Brennan, and if you watch this, you'll be able to see my face to make sure that you've got the right one.
Give us your profile picture, pose, John.
So that's a really great place to find me, connect, and drop me a message. It'd be nice to hear from people.
Brilliant. I'm sure people will do, because I think that there's stuff that people want to have conversations with you around some of the stuff we've talked about there. But just a big thank you really for your time. As I say, I know you're busy, and really appreciate this, particularly this time of year, coming on and sharing your thoughts. Ryan, thank you as well. Great to see you again.
Good to see you too, Zach, and thanks, John. You've really enjoyed the conversation today. I think it's a real nice kind of start to the first new season
Yes, yeah, great guest to kick off with. So yeah, but big thanks for everyone who's watching as well. We've got more guests lined up over the next few weeks, so please do tune in. Let us know your thoughts, and if you are interested in coming on, then reach out to us.